Hello, everyone. Hello, and welcome to another episode of New to Weeaboo. This is number 107 for October 4th, 2023. I am Nemesis, and I'm joined by Alcatraz.
Hello.
Yeah, it is now October.
Yep.
Let's see, a couple things I want to mention. Apparently, Haruhi Suzumiya is getting a new light novel.
Interesting. Yeah.
Which is
I
like...
was seeing that, it's like,
I'm not sure.
That's a franchise.
I remember there was the last time that we got something new is wound up being something very insubstantial.
Yeah. It's like, Haruhi, that is definitely a franchise.
Yeah. Haruhi
has been around for a bit now. He's popping back up.
The other thing I want to mention, because I didn't mention last time because it didn't pop up until right after we started recorded, which was Yohane is getting a second game.
Another one.
Yeah, this first one's not even out, and the second one's already been announced for February of next year. It's apparently it's a deck building game, so I'm like,
On one hand, it's deck building. On the other hand, it's Yohane.
I'm torn on whether or not I want to buy it.
Shouldn't tear your decks. It's bad on the cards.
Anyway, yeah, so that's the thing. I'm just like, I was like seeing the listing for it. I'm like, there's the collector's editions, and I'm like, I don't know, do I want to spend the money on something I'm probably not going to enjoy that much? Yeah. I don't know, because deck building games, I just don't really have a good time with them.
Yeah.
I just wind up being frustrated because, oh, cool, random thing happened and I'm dead or something.
Or
my deck is terrible this time because, yeah.
Yeah. It takes a certain kind of...
Or it's just, I don't like these systems. I can't remember everything I need to do.
Yeah. They work really, really well with certain groups of people.
Yeah.
But
or you have to wait 5 minutes for your opponent to take their turn.
Yeah.
Because they have to explain every little thing to you.
Yeah. Card games are definitely one of those like love or hate kind of things. I used to play some physical card games, but yeah, they're kind of tough to get into.
Yeah, I'll have to see, because also there's the whole thing. I know it's coming to the U.S. regardless, because I've been listening for Steam. So I was like, okay, yeah, it's going to come. It means it's going to be English for language, but it's like one of those. Yeah. And on top of that, if it's one of those games where it's like it doesn't have English language support from the, because you can buy the physical copy from Japan. It's like if it's one of those that doesn't have English language support all the get-go. It's like, oh, cool. It's a complicated game. I don't know how to play it at all.
Yeah. Hopefully the wikis move quick.
Yeah. I'm like, I can only read some of these words, and some of them I know I can read it, but I don't know what it means.
English mod.
Because it will be in English. It's just...
Yep. You have to either...
this support English out of the box, because some of them do, some of them don't.
Yep.
We shall find
out. Who knows? If there's an official English one, but only for like digital only, someone might make a mod to grab the official English runs from the digital and mod it into the physical one or something like that.
One problem is, trying to mod your system, and good luck with that.
Yeah.
And on top of that, because with like the other Yohane game, it's a side-scrolling platformer, so like even if it's not in English, it wouldn't be too difficult to figure out how to play it.
Yeah. Other one is, I wonder how much gotcha stuff is going to get in there.
I don't think it's going to be one of those. It is pretty much, as far as I understand, it's not really gotcha.
Okay, because I know that is common with like card building. It's rife
as far as I can tell,
gotchas.
anyway. It looks like it is a game. An actual game.
Wow, an actual game.
An actual game, and not just pay us money and get the cards.
Yeah.
But anyway, moving on from all that, we have the new anime to talk about. Well, at least new to us, anyway.
New to us.
As the name the podcast implies, although that's become increasing a misnomer as time goes on.
Didn't we mention that right near the beginning?
And someone also mentioned it to us on Twitter. I saw that someone on Twitter was like, "Wow, you guys call yourselves New to Weeaboo, and yet you talk about Key the Metal Idol." It's like, yeah,
it's new to us.
And you're also on you're in the triple digits in the episodes. Like you'll. Yeah, we knew this was going to happen.
Yeah, it's our journey.
As time goes on, we're not going to be so new anymore. But yeah,
that's
kind of part of the thing. Anyway, we're talking about Serial Experience Lain. As I stumbled through last time, because yes, it is Lain.
Reinu.
It sure was an experience.
It was definitely an experience.
So, a quick thing. I'm trying to think of...
How do you summarize this?
I'm trying to think. I'm not trying to summarize. I just want to say how I want to feel about it before we get into the nitty-gritty. It was strange. I have mixed feelings on it. It's definitely of its time. And those are my thoughts on it, I think, in quick.
Right. It was definitely an experience. Again, with the mixed feelings, I wanted to like it more than I did, but I didn't hate it. But it was definitely different and very much a product of its time. Yeah, right. That pretty much nails it on general feelings, but especially it's not bad. No. I liked it, but I wanted to like it more.
So trying to get into this, I don't think I can really summarize it in a way that's coherent. At least not easily. But it's about a girl named Lain and her experience on The Wired, which essentially is the internet. Essentially. Although it's a little more than that, apparently. But yeah, that's what her experience on that, and just kind of lots of questions about existence. The Wired versus the real world, how it's connected.
The blurring of the line between
and
the two.
All that stuff, and even the whole, is she even real? And there's a lot going on.
Yep.
Also, quick warnings, this anime gets into some dark stuff. There's a couple kind of gruesome-ish scenes, like including some body horror, and also it opens up with a suicide, so...
Yep, literally first episode.
Literally within the first few minutes of the first episode, suicide. So, word of warning.
Word of warning. Yeah.
And it also just deals with a lot of just kind of heavier themes and all in some ways, and just not necessarily in ways that are conclusive.
Mm-hmm.
So it can be it's one of those, and sometimes I'm just like, what are they trying to say here? And I'm also, sometimes there's a couple of the conclusions I'm kind of like a bit of raising an eyebrow at. Okay, so this came out in the summer of 1998.
Yep,
right?
Late 90s.
It's a 13-episode anime, and it's right in that point in time where a lot of people, not just in the U.S., but in Japan as well, were finally getting home internet access.
Yep.
This is about that time.
Yep.
And actually, I remember that was when my household got home internet access for the first time. Before that, it was largely you had to go to like a library or a school, and you kind of had limited access, and between just time and also just filters and everything, you had very limited access to the internet, if you had any at all.
Yep.
And this was when people were starting to get home internet connections, and thus being able to go and go online and experience the internet as it was.
Yeah, at the actual full internet. I could go into a bit more details on that, even though I wasn't part of it. I've done a lot of looking into stuff. And these
people
there.
Doing stuff, these were people, the chat rooms were a thing and whatnot. People were talking to people they had never even seen or heard in their life.
Yep.
And that sort of thing. And because of that, it was a brand new thing. And for a lot of people, it was kind of scary.
It was.
Because it's new and unknown. So, and on top of it, because, there's a whole thing, like anyone our age in our 30s growing up, kind of were told, don't give out your name, don't give out your address, don't tell anyone how old you are, don't push the photos online. And nowadays, it's like people are like, what?
It's the exact opposite.
Now it's like you're doing all of that. It's all out there.
Because that's how companies make money, is by selling that.
And on top of that, now it's like the internet has become so integrated in our lives now that it's like there isn't really a separation anymore. Back in the 90s, there still was kind of a separation between your real life and the internet life.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of gone now
in the wrong
modern
way,
society.
In my opinion. But yeah,
for better or for worse, it's gone now.
Yeah,
it's like your internet life and your real life are just the same. That's more or less. They're all part of each other. You can't really have a life without the internet now, at least in modern, like U.S., Europe, Japan.
Yeah.
So that's the thing, was this sort of anime, which is kind of getting all about those fears of this whole internet thing, those fears of and all that stuff existed at the time because it was new. Nowadays, something like this coming out now would be kind of like, what? But now at the time, it was like this girl is just kind of getting on the internet and weird things are happening, and like they're talking about these questions about how the Wired here is it's like it's another layer, it's a connection to real life, all that stuff.
Yep.
And it comes to some conclusions, and also just the general and also it dips a little bit into conspiracy theories and all sorts of things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it does so in a very erratic way.
It does so in a very erratic way. like we said, it was a product of its time. Around this time, early to late, like all throughout the 90s, there was a slew of media that all talk around the same thing, or all touch on the same topic. So, if you partook in some of the media, this is one of those like person who has only played this game relates it all to that game kind of a thing.
Yeah.
You might come, and I started to see that, like I had a note here about like Snow Crash, but then you realize everything talked about the same topic. This blurring of the lines between virtual and reality was a huge talking point all throughout the 90s that I think anyone even tangentially sci-fi related was writing stories about this.
I read a book when I was a kid about this sort of thing, about, it was, virtual reality, like just goggles and stuff, and like how that became so predominant in life. And
like the reason I put the Snow Crash thing in here, because I remember one of the things in Neil Stephenson did a whole bunch of stuff on this one, but one of the things I remember in Snow Crash was there's this class of people that was so into I forgot what they call it, the big internet, the equivalent to the Wired and Snow Crash. They were so into that they would have these like computer things strapped to them so they could walk around in real life while also still being in the virtual world.
Yeah, we saw
that. And then we see that in here too, that happened, but it's like, it wasn't just Snow Crash, it wasn't just this, it was a lot of them. Hell, even the Matrix.
The Matrix is a big one.
Was a big thing.
That's probably the big one.
It's probably the most well-known that was touching on this. Of course,
that was also the kind of the tail end of things in a sense.
Yeah.
Because when we get into the thousands, that kind of started filtering away.
Because what started happening is, the internet started becoming commonplace. So
MySpace opened up and everything.
Yeah, MySpace and then Facebook.
I was like the beginning of like the scariness of the internet kind of going away, or at least that version of, it's unknown. Now the new scariness is corporations own everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh God, that whole thing. It was a combination. I think the scariness, there's two things that were happening around that time. Like I said, the internet became common.
Yeah.
All these things that were happening on the internet that they were talking about were already happening, but it was harder to get into because it was like the BBS scene.
You had to use a lot of expensive equipment and
even if it wasn't always expensive equipment, but it required more like
technical know-how as well.
Technical know-how. Like you were talking about chat rooms.
Yeah.
Well, they had those, except for things like BBSs. So what you would have to do is you would have to tell your computer to dial the BBS, log in, do your chatting, log out.
Yeah, and
undial. You would specifically dial your modem to the servers. There was no solid connection to everyone. You had to
take your phone and physically put it into a
and even then after that, it would still be manually dialing. Even after we got,
because that's how you had to do it.
The original ones, the acoustic couplers, what they called those.
Yeah, that's how you had to sometimes do it.
But it wasn't until even much later, even after auto-dialing modems, that we actually got the internet at large, where you had a single connection constantly to everything all at once. And when that started happening with like your CompuServes and whatnot, and all the local ISPs started popping
AOL.
Up. AOL was even later.
Yeah.
AOL was even later. But you have like the local dial-up ISPs. But yeah, this idea of one connection to everything, one big network, instead of just disparate servers that you connect to directly each one, that's when it started becoming big. So we get this combination of a whole bunch of new people seeing a world that had already begun to be formed, but also people who were more easily integrated into it and understanding of it, giving more access. So we had this combination of people seeing this new thing and not knowing what it is and getting scared of it, but also a lot of people who seeing this and seeing its potential. So this huge explosion, and this really kind of is a merger of the two ideas, being scared of it, but also it becoming this big thing. It's kind of cool.
Yeah. And here it's like weird because Lain starts off, she like knows nothing about any of this stuff. It's like she has a computer, what they call them, the
Navis.
Navi. And she has one, but it's kind of older, and she just kind of barely uses it, maybe just checks messages every once in a while. That's about it, the extent of her use of it. But then things get weird. Then things get really weird.
Because what happens.
But the suicide was Chisa Yomada. She sends her a message after she died. And then apparently she sends that message to a lot of people, but she looked at it and was like, kind of talking about weird stuff, like how she didn't really die. She just abandoned her physical self. And so she kind of starts poking, and well, the thing is the computer's old, so it's not very good. So she asks her dad, who is super into this stuff,
Yep.
for a new one. He's like, oh, great. Yeah, I'll get you one. Because then she starts going more and more hardcore, and then she starts modifying it. And then next you know, her room is just this horrifying cyberpunk Giger-esque nightmare of machines and coolant and piping and
honestly, goals.
Yeah. Also clean up because you got
There's
liquid
coolant
all over. Please clean that up. That's gross.
The fact that it's not leaking into like the other parts of the building or whatnot makes me think it was like maybe put there on purpose.
Who knows? But it's one of those things. Regardless, that's a whole thing. Even people were marking on it. It's like, yeah, it looks ugly, but it's really easy to modify this way.
And open piping all over the place. And, it looks good.
Yeah, and then
it looks good. It's great.
There's a whole thing. Yeah, there's a whole thing about the Knights of the Eastern Calculus.
Yeah, the whole Knights thing. That was a weird one.
It's like a hacker group.
Yeah, that's somehow related to the Knights Templar. It's like a branch that can trace its lineage to it. It's a weird thing.
Yeah, and there's a whole. Apparently, it's based on the Knights of the Lambda Calculus.
Yeah.
That's their whole thing, but yeah, and there's the whole thing is Lain, and people assuming Lain's part of it, and she isn't? Question mark?
What Lain is and isn't is the one of the big questions for the entire series.
Yeah, she also has her, one of her best friends, Alice Mizuki. She's she's probably the person who's nicest to Lain through the whole thing. She even talks about how her name's a little weird because it's very Western.
Yep.
She's like, at first it's like she's the one who, Lane's the naive one and kind of closed off, and Alice then kind of brings her into this world with like, the nightclub and everything, and then
Siberia,
and then Lain gets increasingly disconnected from everything. Then there's a whole thing there, because she's like, "Did you do that?" No, what are you talking about? And then, she did, and then she didn't, but she did.
She did, but she didn't. Yeah. I think one of the big questions that keeps popping up is Lain appears to have been in the Wired before the events of things, and there's like a second Lain.
Yeah, there's this whole thing they imply that Lain's always been there.
Yep.
Which is a whole thing in of itself, because one of the episodes, again, it gets in the whole conspiracy theory thing, which is this whole the field around the Earth, everyone actually being connected, and and basically Lain is that, maybe.
Or part of it.
Or something like that. Because again,
right.
A lot of non things like draw your own conclusion type of things.
Yep. It's open to interpretation.
I mean, there's actual Men in Black in this.
Except like those two guys with the weird face things keep showing up, but apparently they're like sort of hired goons for someone else. So they're not really like government agents.
Yeah, but it's just one of those things like, but Men in Black.
Yeah.
The actual conspiracy, not the movie. And then they talk about multiple conspiracy. That was a very weird thing, was the conspiracy theorist thing being brought in. Oh yeah, that, because I remember that opening episode, like, that looks like southwestern US. Sure enough, they talk about Roswell. Oh, yep, okay.
Yep.
They're talking about Roswell, and because the whole idea that a lot of our technology is based off what we recovered from the aliens.
Yep.
That sort of thing. There's also a couple other of her friends who are kind of incidental. If anything,
yeah,
they're just there, and they kind of also a little.
Are they really her friends or friends of Alice's?
It's one of those things, like, friends or something like that, or kind of.
Because Lane's kind of a loner,
a little bit.
Alice is the only one who's really kind of reached out to her, and the other two are just there because Alice was there. Although it's interesting now to think about Alice.
Yeah.
See how far this rabbit hole goes.
Yeah, it's.
Where else is we used?
It's the name was from a previous work.
Okay.
Okay,
so it's not a reference to Alice in Wonderland.
Kind of is, actually, the writer.
Okay.
Because they wrote something called Alice in Cyberland.
Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of references to Alice in Wonderland. Matrix did it too.
Yeah. Because this is the whole strange world you're going into.
Yep.
Things don't make sense anymore.
This is not franchise A copying franchise B. This is franchise A and B copying the same root.
Yeah.
From even older.
So as this goes on top of that, there's a lot of stuff where it's like, I'm not even sure it's actually happening in order. I'm pretty sure it's not. A lot of the scenes we see, because it jumps around a lot, and it's intentionally disorienting.
Especially when you get to the changing of memories.
Yeah, changing of memories and stuff, like
is
all
this
of a sudden.
before this
act or
reset?
and
there
also
is the one
things,
reset.
It's also
two
the other
resets.
thing, which is like, did that even actually happen?
Yeah, there was 2 confirmed, like shown reset
Mm-hmm.
points.
Or like the part where we see Lain just in the sky, like she's God in the real world.
Like
And it's
that one.
and everyone's seeing that and going freaking out. And then it's like, did that even happen?
Yep. And then the kids, the 3 kids that pop up.
Mm-hmm.
The 2 guys and the 1 girl. And the one of the boys is really into the tech more than the other ones. They all kind of are, but the one boy really is into tech. Then we have the weird bug. That's an important. I think it's not shown much, but it is, I think, important, especially with the end. And then Lain starts modifying her computers with the chip that suddenly shows up.
Mm-hmm.
That's apparently supposed to is really powerful in connecting things to the wired.
Mm-hmm. So, like, another thing was, that's one of the first big, I think, hints about Lain and the fact that there might be a second Lain, maybe, is there's the guy in the nightclub who freaks out when he sees Lain, and then telling him, he tells her, you told me something like, you told me to do this, and he offs himself.
Right in front of her. Because she also goes
and she just stood there, and that was the weird thing, was afterwards they all acted like it wasn't a big deal.
Well, like, yeah. Oh, that
was the weird thing.
That whole scene. Because, they're in the nightclub. They're in Siberia for the first time.
Yeah, or she is for the first time.
Supposedly. Yeah.
It's her first time.
Supposedly.
But they're like, we saw you there.
He shows up with a gun, and everyone freaks out, and Lain just walks up to him.
Uh-huh.
And they have that conversation, and then he offs himself.
And then later on, everyone's acting like it wasn't a big deal.
Well, I mean, right after they're at the police station, and like, Alice is freaking out.
But they go to school the next day, and like it's
and
like
then everything's fine after.
A non-thing. Like, again, it's like were the memories erased? Maybe.
Except they mentioned they kind of brought it up.
I think there's something like they talked about how they should feel worse than they do.
Yeah, so I think that's what it was.
Did she like erase the emotions attached to it somehow?
Maybe. But because we see that she apparently ends up having that ability.
She can alter reality somehow because she might be God.
There's a whole thing of memory is the record. If you change the memory, history is memory. If you change the memory, you change reality.
Yeah.
It is one of the big things. And apparently she can alter reality by, it's this whole thing. It's interesting. That was the whole 2-part thing.
Mm-hmm.
It brought up another question that, of course, never truly gets answered. There's at least 2 different lanes.
At some point,
the IRL lane, I guess, that we see that's kind of loner and timid and nice-ish.
And
then there's the wired lane,
which
who's kind of
more aggressive
and kind of creepy and But there's at certain points, especially when the goons bring Lain to the boss.
Yeah.
And he presses her with questions, and she kind of snaps, and the other Lain comes out. It's like, are we dealing with a single person with like split personalities, or is the wired Lain able to cross a boundary and take control of the physical Lain when she needed to? And that never gets answered because they just add more lanes.
Yeah. Then there's the whole thing of like the family. Lain's family.
So
like her dad was like, he seems to be this guy who's super into tech and computers and all that stuff.
Yeah, Yasuo.
But then it's like, then her mom is
that's
just existing, right?
Yeah.
It's almost like she just exists. And she just kind of sits there and she barely talks to Lain and everything. She also has an older sister who starts off normal and then she gets weird.
Maybe possibly replaced?
Or something. I think
because there's the one scene where she's seeing things freak out.
Apparently the implication is she gets stuck between, because of Lain's doing, she gets kind of a side effect of the older sister gets stuck between the real world and the virtual world.
Yeah, because remember there's the one scene.
The idea there.
She starts seeing weird stuff and she's freaking out. She comes home and sees herself, and then she disappears, and then the other self is there, and the other self is just stoic all the time.
Yeah. Apparently the idea was it's she got stuck between the real world and the virtual world or something like that, and that's why she's kind of towards the end she's just kind of sitting there mumbling to herself.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, while the parents just don't seem to care.
And then they just disappear.
And then everyone disappears because, like, Lain's not actually part of their family.
Yeah, like
probably.
Family may have been fake.
the whole time, and this dad knew the whole time at the very least. At least the dad did.
Yeah.
And he does really love Lain, apparently, or something. Or
Apparently everyone does, though. That's
because,
also weird.
Yeah.
So.
There's a whole lot there. There's also the guy who shows up, apparently supposedly created Lain.
Yep.
And then he's all saying, I'm going to be God. And then he eventually, turns into a massive flesh and dies or something.
Yeah, because
Lain just out-logics him again.
Yeah, I get.
That's pretty much how it's basically she did this sentence is false, it's much more complicated.
Sort of, yeah. So this whole thing, the way I interpret it, because everything here seems to be like open to interpretation. Because he's also talking about the idea of the wired protocols and the new version protocols and the blurring of the lines and residual thought programs getting embedded in the low-level protocol itself. The way I'm interpreting it is that Airi Masumi, the dude with the red on the face,
right,
was a dude, just a person who was able to get into like the protocol and embedded himself into the protocol to become God.
Right.
And he's the one kind of doing all that sort of stuff because now you live in the wired, you don't need a body, and you're basically in control of all. And then when the lines get blurred, you can become God of the real, yada, yada, yada. He claims to have made Lain. I'm not so certain. He also mentions that bug, that weird pill thing from early that never shows up. He mentions that because apparently Alice doesn't have it. Because remember when Alice showed up in Lane's room trying to find her and freaking out when the whole massive flesh thing happened, he mentioned, oh, you must not have a bug.
Right.
So I'm wondering if that was also part of the blurring of the lines, that people started getting this thing to attach themselves to the wired and she never did. And that's sort of how he was exerting control by attaching everyone to the wired and yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking Lain may not have been created by him, and Lain is just this omnipresent thing. And that's how she was able to just... The other one is forced him to make himself a body and then killed it.
Yeah.
And that's how he killed him. Tricked him into making himself vulnerable.
Yeah, just basically, but Lain just went, you never actually existed, though.
You never cared about... You didn't care about having
you
a
never
body.
existed.
Yeah. And then crushed him somehow by like telepathically turning all the equipment into a room and crushing him with it telepathically or weird...
There's some weird stuff.
Weird.
Also, those two guys blew up. There's a bomb here. Boom.
Yep.
Why? Because
one of the knights, I'm assuming. The knights apparently.
She started poking around.
So she doxed all of the knights and got them all killed.
Yep. That was a thing.
That was a thing.
Happened. And then things were kind of reset, and people who are alive now and dead, also she doesn't exist anymore. Except Alice kind of remembered her for a while until she didn't anymore.
Yeah, and then they went into the future.
Yeah, we had a bit of an epilogue, with noticeably in the future where Alice is now an adult and married, and she meets Lain, who still looks like a middle school girl, and then it's like, don't I know you? No. But yes, actually.
But yes, no. But
Lain just is like, I'm just gonna be like this forever, I guess.
Yeah,
and I'm fine with it.
The ending was rather abrupt.
Yeah, it was very abrupt. It was like, how are they going to wrap this up? Oh, that's how. It's over.
Click.
It's over
Everything that's not explained, good luck.
Figure it out. Figure it out yourself, moron.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I got mixed feelings on this. One of the things I was catching, it's like, it feels... Well, it's very aesthetic, I guess. Very atmospheric feeling, especially with the art style. Lots of focuses on utility poles, because that's just... a thing.
Yeah.
That's just overall
That's part of the wired.
Yeah.
Because that's one thing, and the wired is not just the internet, it's like everything communications related.
Yeah.
So there's
But also pictures of utility poles are really common. It's a thing in its own right. But also the shadows were all rendered weird. Had that weird stuff in all of the shadows.
Why they did that. There's this very intentional thing because those weird shadows supposed to represent the wired itself.
Yeah,
as
the blurring of the lines,
the reflection of reality. Guys, as its idea is, it's supposed to be kind of this undercurrent. The wired is this undercurrent under reality.
Yeah,
and that's what you're seeing in the shadows there.
Yeah,
possibly what Lain's seeing in the shadows.
Possibly what Lain sees. Could be. But it's very aesthetic and the way it treats itself and it holds itself. It has a sort of cerebral kind of feeling to it where they're trying to be really deep and thought-invoking and such like that. But my issue with it is like at certain points it feels like it's trying to be cerebral without being as cerebral as it really is, and end up being just kind of obtuse. It's like, because you get that sometimes when you something like
The writers
Ghost in the Shell, where it is deep and really thought-provoking, but other people are like, oh, I want to do that, but don't know how to do it, and end up just being
the
obtuse.
writer kind of wrote about something, didn't really know what they were talking about, but thought they did.
Yeah, and using flowery language to sound deep without actually hitting the mark.
Kind of a little bit.
It feels like it treads that line. It does hit the topics. Like, it's there. It's got it. But sometimes it feels like it's maybe trying to push it too much.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those things where you shouldn't have to push the cerebral and the deepness. It should kind of like be inherent. If you know what you're writing, it should just kind of happen through the writing. And when you push it, it just kind of, But it did pretty well. But it's one of my sticking points of I wanted to like it more, because it does at some point seem overly obtuse just for the sake of being confusing.
Yeah,
confusing is not deep.
Yeah. But there's the other thing about it, which is Lain is largely a loner, but until she starts going to the Wired. Really, that's for a lot of us. That was kind of a thing. We didn't really connect with people until we started, talking to them online.
Yep.
And that was one thing that's there. And well, then she, revealed she kind of is online. Like she literally is.
She's not on. She's not on the web. She is the web.
Yeah, and that sort of thing. So. There's a whole thing. Now she's connected to everyone, but she's still, it's that weird thing. She's literally connected to everyone now, except now she's still as more lonely than ever. So it's like,
I've seen that.
It's like how the good old godhood sucks. See, Magica Magica.
Wait.
See,
being God is the loneliest. What was that one Obama quote? Something like that. Yeah.
Fake Obama quote. Yeah.
Being God is the loneliest achievement of them all.
Yeah, something like that. The other thing I want to mention also is visuals themselves. It is a very unusual style for anime, even at the time. Like the way the characters design is on the themselves. Like everyone has blown out pupils for some reason.
Yep.
But just in general, like some of the when they were in the Wired itself, it's a cacophony essentially. The cacophonous visuals. And it is intentionally, I feel like it's intentionally supposed to be just disorienting and confusing, and just supposed to almost represent the idea of, something like the internet. Just there's so much there, you can't really process it.
Right.
Because I'm trying to remember that one silly old joke, that ISP commercial about, oh, look, high-speed internet, you have reached the end of the internet.
You've reached the end of the internet. You've seen it all. Congratulations.
You have not. You have seen nothing. But yeah, so you got, there's all that, again, very, very heavy cyberpunk-esque stuff, particularly Lane's computer monstrosity.
God, I love that. I love it so much.
And so you get that. You also get the, under the staticky, stuff overlaying text and images, and like almost like this weird, like I would say JPEG artifacting type of stuff. I love it, and just it's very, I think everyone knows this, the old Windows Media Player headspace.
Yeah,
that sort of design language.
Yeah, God, that skin was the best.
Those old
Pull
Windows
the
Media
ears
Player
out
skins.
to get your side panel. Yeah,
the old Windows Media Player skin. That particular, again, that very specific time, the late 90s, early 2000s, where everything was kind of weirdly shiny, but like super.
So yeah, the way I want to. I like to describe it, and one of my biggest frustrations with tech nowadays and the web nowadays is back in the 90s and 2000s, when all this was new and open, it was chaos. It was beautiful, though. It was this beautiful chaos of passion, and where people were just making whatever the hell they wanted, and there was just some garbage, but there was so much good. And nowadays, you don't get that.
Down.
Everything's sanitized for SEO and crap, so that the 5 companies that own everything in the web will actually show your stuff to other people. And I hate it. I absolutely hate it. But that's where this was made in. Was that birth of
or the stuff, if you can find the
creativity.
chaos and weirdness, you have to kind of dig for it, and it's all isolated now.
Yeah.
You have to go look for it specifically, and it's very isolated and hard to find. And
NeoCities is not as good as the old GeoCities.
Or it's all on Discord now.
God,
that sort of thing.
God,
it's all on Discord, and good luck finding it.
Yeah, I hate it. I hate it so much.
Yeah, on top of that, it's just, there's kind of the, what is it? Again, the fear of the unknown. There's people kind of just, they don't get it. Alice almost represents, I almost want to feel like it represents kind of the old, I don't understand this.
Mm-hmm.
This kind of the old is kind of being forced to confront the new, and you don't get to escape. You just have to deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have to live in this world now, regardless of the fact that it terrifies you.
Yep.
Also, the internet. Not the internet. The music is.
The music is interesting.
There's a lot of very heavy guitars and whatnot.
Yeah.
There's this song that plays in I think it's the final episode, or was it the second, the penultimate episode? It's just really. I just like this. I think.
I would have to go back and listen to it because when I start thinking songs, my brain just goes.
One where it's like a good third of the episode was just montage of the previous episodes, and I think they're playing a song over it. I think that's what it was.
I think I mentioned it was like the first part was just like a weird type of clip episode.
But regardless, there's some really good music in here, but it's again very much of a time. It's that very specific time frame of music.
I do like the OP.
Yeah.
Duvet by Boa.
Mm-hmm.
It is really good. It's interesting how much English was used.
Yeah, the entire OP is English.
Yeah. Also, the intro sequence. The intro sequence of the present day, present time is great.
The other thing was a lot of Apple computer stuff popped up because, they were using Apple computers. And so, at one point you see that the Think Different logo, actually, if you remember that popped in there. It was in there. And a lot of this, the navies are kind of loosely look kind of Apple-ish in design.
Until Lain gets her hands on it.
Until Lain messes with it. But yeah, the initial just basic design of the navies looks very Apple-ish. There's a lot of this stuff in there like that. They even used the episode titles. That's an Apple thing.
Oh, yeah.
But
Layer 0.
Because they use a lot of Apple computers making this thing.
Yeah.
That's where a lot of
it's what's sitting in front of you, so if you're going to gain inspiration for anything,
particularly since where do the graphic people go,
especially in the 90s,
you use an Apple,
especially in the 90s.
Yeah, all the music people and all the artist people were all using Macs.
Yeah,
for better or for worse. But yeah, that was just kind of the thing. There it was just the constant use of English actually kind of threw me because I was watching it. I was watching an episode, and I was kind of clicking through some stuff on my other screen, and I was looking at something on Steam. I forgot though that on Steam I had the sound on for the video autoplays, so an English language thing started playing while I'm watching this thing. I'm like, because it was a dead silent scene except for music and stuff. They're just showing stuff, so it's like monologue happening on a trailer, and I didn't realize
that was something
I was like,
separate
because it's almost like it felt like a fit, and I was like, oh, and it's like, wow, just really clear English in this anime. And I hit pause, and then the English because I was gonna do something. I had to get up for some reason, and then the English kept going.
Keeps going.
I was like, what? Oh God! Wait. A trailer's auto playing. That's what that English was. Then rewound the anime and watched it again. There is nothing there. Just
okay.
Yeah.
I was like,
it's
just
really
an atmospheric moment.
It's just kind of weirdly atmospheric moment because the monologue kind of sounded like it almost fit because they're talking about what they're talking about. There's like some tech thing and some guy talking to some doctor and like some tech stuff and like raising an army. It's like almost feels like this fits.
Almost feels like it fits, especially with the whole Masami, whatever the hell he was trying to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Embed himself in the new protocols and become God, and then the other people are like, and Lain's like, no. But then the other people were also like, we're gonna use Lain to deal with Masami, but also you can't be part of it either. Good luck.
Yeah. And Lain just goes, no, you.
Yeah, basically just goes, no, you.
Imagine if she's just used God, like late 90s, early 2000s memes to defeat him.
God. Kills him with
one memes. Cup. Yeah.
You should check out Meat Spin.
So yeah, I also remember the line from PT. It's like, the only me is me. Are you sure the only you is you?
There were some really good lines.
But that was in PT, and that's just I just thought of that because Lain, because that was the thing. It was like for the first half of this is like utter chaos of like, I don't know what the hell's going on. Then the second half, like, okay, we're going to start answer some questions, but also here's some more stuff
But here's
that
some more.
we're not going to ever answer.
Nope.
So they started answering things like, okay, yes, there are 2 lanes. It's pretty obvious there are definitely 2 different lanes for some reason.
Primarily.
That was why, for a while, I was like, are they going to do like some sort? Actually, it's a split personality.
That's why I mentioned it earlier. Does she have a split personality?
No, there's 2 lanes, but is there really 2 lanes? Because that's the other thing is the implication that the physical lane was never real.
Right. Masumi kept saying, "Oh, you're a hologram."
It's something like that. Yeah, it's
But
basically
it's like,
the physical lane never actually truly existed. She was just an extension of the virtual lane on the Wired.
yeah.
To just kind of existed one day.
But was she?
But was she?
But was she?
Or it's as possible, is either A, Lain always existed as the Wired, and this one day you gave yourself a physical copy, or because she got so powerful on the Wired, she was able to rewrite reality to make it as if that was the case.
What if everything we saw was the Wired and we were never in
physical?
physical?
That too. The good old, it was all a dream, but digital edition. Everyone hates it was all a dream. Except when when it became Mass Effect, where people, please do it was all a dream.
Yeah.
Indoctrination theory. When you screwed up when everyone wants it to be all a dream.
Yeah.
But anyway, there's probably a lot here that we could dig on like one facet of for hours.
Yeah. Like you brought up earlier, the where Lain wasn't really into computers until she got the email and suddenly that sparked something.
Yeah.
God, that's such a thing. But I love that. I'm not good with computers. Proceeds to become world-renowned hacker.
Yeah, becomes hacker. Of course, I'm just thinking of those things. It's like someone who doesn't know what they're doing just because they don't know anything, they're able to do everything. That sort of thing. So was it Superman 3, actually? Yeah. The movie Superman 3, Richard Pryor. Just some guy, he was just some guy, and then he figured out he was really good at this programming thing, even though he had no training whatsoever, because he just was trying to get a job just to survive.
Right.
And then he figured out he could, he was looking at these he was doing the budget stuff for the company, realized all these half pennies.
Oh,
and so he took all the half pennies and cut himself a check and got like thousands of dollars. And then they're like, hey, why isn't one of our employees driving a Porsche or whatever it was? It was like why isn't one of our low-level employees driving such a fancy car? And they found out what he did, and then they kind of more or less blackmailed him into joining their evil scheme because they needed a good programmer.
Yeah.
So like you if you don't do that, we'll tell you. It's like one of those because you just skimmed money off.
That's a common the taking the penny percentages and shifting some of that's a common trope.
That was very much in Superman 3. Superman 3 is not a great movie.
Yeah, but I think the idea of taking partial pennies and moving them is even an older concept because I've seen that pop up in so many different places.
Because like no one's gonna miss it.
Yeah, it's a half a penny. We don't have
you can't actually spend that. So
yeah.
Regardless, that's just kind of I was just thinking about that. Just kind of the, someone who just knows nothing becomes an utter expert just because they know nothing. Therefore, they're not bound by the rules.
It's like a chef, a cook who only knows just enough to not kill themselves can sometimes make amazing things because they don't know the rules. They'll just make stuff, whatever they feel like.
And usually, though, what happens is you don't know the rules and you're just constantly screwing it up.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
but you get that
happens.
weird halfway point. They don't know the quote-unquote correct way of doing a meal. So they just kind of toss in what they think they like and it comes out amazing.
Yeah, I've done that before.
They know just enough to not make something disgusting and they end up making something
really fun
amazing.
one. Just enough to get yourself into trouble, but not enough to get yourself out.
Ah, yes. Yeah, unfortunately in the tech world, I run to the know just enough about tech to piss off everyone else because they're breaking everything and they think they know more than they do. I'd rather deal with the people who know even less and know they don't know. And they go, I'm not very good with computers. I can work with that. Yeah. The I know what I'm doing proceeds to break everything. No.
Who did this?
This was Studio Triangle Staff?
Triangle Staff.
I don't recognize that one.
Established in 1987. Yeah. Space Pirate Meet, I've heard that. Lots of OVAs. Hyperdoll, Psychic Force. Yeah, they didn't do, they did Macross at one point. But yeah, they didn't really do a whole lot, it looks like. Yeah, it's deceased Operation 2000.
Yeah. There is some other media. I think there was like a spin-off
There's a game and a manga.
And then there was a PlayStation 1 game.
Yeah, there's a game and a manga.
Yeah, it was like a one-shot
Apparently
manga.
the PlayStation game was more or less kind of more like the idea was
I heard it's the same
kind of a
characters
graphic
but
novel.
different story.
It's a graphic novel-esque thing. They said the creator said it's not a game, it's a psycho stretchwear.
Yeah, I heard it's really weird.
Yeah.
It didn't do well until after it flopped and got kind of a cult following afterwards.
Yeah.
There's like a web version of the unofficial English port, so I might have to play that sometime.
Yeah, it's just kind of a odd little thing. It's just kind of, you're just exploring the it's supposed to be a network simulator, I guess.
Mm.
Yeah, there was a manga, I'm not sure what that is. It's called
I just had it
Nightmare
up on
Fabrication.
Yeah, it's like a one-shot.
Yeah,
Nightmare
so
Fabrication.
yeah, it looks like it's a spin-off. But yeah.
Side
You can watch it on Funimation. That is the thing.
Yep, it's for some reason they haven't moved it back over to Crunchyroll.
Yeah, it was on Crunchyroll at one point, I think, but yeah.
It was, and then Funimation got it, and now Funimation owns Crunchyroll, but they haven't moved back.
Yeah. A lot of stuff's still stuck on Funimation for some reason. It's like, I'm not sure if they're ever going to finish that or if they intend to finish it. That's what's worrying.
Yeah.
They don't have no intention of actually moving everything over.
I hope they do. It's funny, we said mixed bag, except we talked most about the cool stuff.
Yeah, but the other stuff I'm trying to think of, there's a couple little things which kind of, what was it I was thinking of? There's something at the moment I was like, about, what was it? I think there's a kind of this weird, like, endorsement of the idea of the unknown is scary and therefore you should fear the unknown a little bit, in the sense, in the very specific sense that, like, you know,
anything unknown is bad.
Yeah.
That
kind of was almost felt like that was the case at one point. That was like, because I remember seeing someone say along the lines of this anime kind of espouses right-wing viewpoints, and particularly conspiracy stuff is always dangerous territory. Now, you know, kind of when you look into conspiracy theories at all, a lot of it is like, like 3/4 of it is just anti-Semitism.
Yeah, most of it. Yeah.
So it's like, whenever you see conspiracy theories, like, but the ones they touched on weren't really, it was aliens, Roswell, and this idea that, you know, the weird one of, if enough people connect to get interconnected and it's in the same number as neurons in a brain, the Earth itself will be alive, that sort of weird stuff.
Yeah.
So, and of course, MJ12, the Majestic 12. Ooh, I remember that one. Back in the, because I think almost everyone has that point of, like, they look into conspiracy theory stuff.
The MK Ultra.
Yeah, but yeah, MJ12 specifically was one.
That was
they mentioned that, the signature from the president on those documents that they got were actually, it was clearly forged.
Oh.
They even mentioned that. But yeah, it's just, there's the other thing. The girl who committed suicide in the beginning was like, she came back at the end because Lain replaced herself with that girl.
Or something like that.
I feel like some of it was just like, yeah, again, like you said, almost felt like confusion for the sake of being confusing.
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier.
I think that's one negative point. That some of it feels like a lot of it is trying to pretend to be deep. It's like, it's a mixture of, like, this is a fairly deep topic, and the others, like, this is not actually that deep at all, you dingus.
Yeah, they're trying to be deep and thought provoking, but the way they go about that is just to be confusing.
And some of it is just very much, you're intentionally setting this up in such a way that it'll so make it look deeper than it actually is.
Yeah.
There's definitely that. And also, it's very sudden stop for an ending.
Mm-hmm.
It just hit the brakes, we're done.
Yep.
And we're done. And bye. That's it. Yeah. Some of the characters are like, I don't even remember your name.
Right.
A lot of the characters. Outside of Lain and Alice, actually, I have no idea who any of these people are by name.
Oh,
that was one thing.
Like one of the kids
I'd have to look it up.
It started with a T. The boy that was more into things.
Parents Taro.
That was his name. Yeah.
Also, the other thing, the Knights thing almost felt like it just very, like, it almost felt like they're building up to this thing and wound up being a like big fat nothing.
Yeah, the Knights were just. It was like this big thing. It's a big thing. They're all dead now.
It's just So that's the thing. It felt like a lot of plot lines kind of got weirdly condensed, and
yep.
I don't know. Maybe that was supposed to be the point. Maybe it's supposed to be like, of course they don't matter, because that's kind of the point. But regardless, it was just. There's a lot of it was just like, I don't know. As a whole, I'm just kind of.
That's why I said I wanted to like this more than I did.
There's a lot of cool ideas, and there's a lot of stuff really good, but there's also just a lot of things that just, I feel like it just kind of went, it's just, and on top of it, some of it is just kind of generally, I felt myself almost trying to check out. Like, I'm just kind of like, this episode's kind of just, I'm bored here. that sort of thing. I'm not sure if that's me or the anime
Maybe.
or what.
Maybe.
Because there's a couple of episodes where definitely it's like, I'm just like, there's like nothing happening.
There were a couple that not much happened in the entire
And sometimes
episode.
I get it can be a creative choice, but like sometimes it's like, considering the way this anime just kind of suddenly stopped, I don't think you had the time to just kind of do nothing for like a good 2 minutes, 3, 4 minutes.
Who knows?
I don't know. So in the end, probably should go ahead and try to watch it. It seems to be a big deal. It looks like.
Yeah, it might be one of those. There's a few of those out there that aren't like the greatest, but they have a lot of significance, cultural significance.
Yeah,
I think this is kind of in that same vein.
I'd say this was very much in that. It's very significant. You should at least check it out at the very least, but also fully where again, like, you know, it is darker. It is.
There's suicide. There's a couple
there's some
in
dark
them
stuff.
at least.
It's not it's one you probably really need to pay attention to. Like, actually watch it.
Yeah, not one that you can just put on the background and pick up.
It's not fluffy. It's not
fluffy.
It's not a feel good. It's at times it's almost depressing and nihilistic.
Yep.
But it's still, at least it's interesting and thought provoking. So there's that.
Yep.
Probably all we can say without getting again super deep, and I don't want to do that because
go on another rant about modern tech.
Yeah, that's just what this one.
Yep.
I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you actually, if you did watch this, maybe you did enjoy it, maybe you didn't. But yeah, if you want to hear more episodes, you can go to newtoweeaboo.libsyn.com. It's spelled Libsyn. Check out the episodes there. Check out episodes on other places. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. Apparently that's shutting down too. Because of course it is. Spotify, YouTube, and Amazon Podcasts, Amazon Music Podcast, whatever the heck they call it. Yeah, apparently Google Podcasts is going to be shutting down. They're transferring it all to YouTube.
Yay.
We're on there too, by the way, so that's not a huge problem, but still a little annoying. And I can't change anything because the Libsyn's also changing stuff, but also in a weird halfway point that's not really useful to anyone.
If you don't change something in every 3 months, then it's not relevant, right? And you have to, so your shareholders will,
think you're doing something.
Exactly.
Yeah, but anyway, that's what we're doing. There's RSS feed there and everything too.
RSS.
So if you want to contact us, you could do so via email, newtoweeaboo@gmail.com. If you have any questions, comments, anime recommendations, and of course, what did you think of Serial Experiments Lain? Are we way off base? Did we completely miss something really obvious? Or did we miss some small detail that changes everything? Or are we just stupid?
Or did we see way more than there is and you think it's completely boring, there's nothing to it?
I don't know.
You're wrong, but you're free to tell us that.
But yeah, and of course, again, recommendations for other anime, new and old. Of course, you can also, contact us via newtoweeaboo.libsyn.com/contact. We all our social media is listed there. So you can contact us and follow us on all of those. And of course, our personal Twitter, our personal accounts on those websites will also be easy to find from the Weeaboo account.
Yep.
So that's it. Again, join us next time. It's going to still be October, so we're talking about Parasite the Maxim.
Parasite.
Yep. So I don't know much about it other than it's
People seem
horror
to
stuff,
like it. Yeah.
and apparently it might be comedy too. So
yeah,
we shall see how that goes, and hopefully it doesn't blow up in our faces.
Yep.
Have a good old spooky time, and we shall see you next time.
See ya.